The clinic was quiet, the kind of place where the smell of antiseptic mingled with soft pastel walls and the occasional giggle of a child. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, warming the tiled floor where 5-year-old Ella skipped around. In her little pink shoes, her small hand clung to her father's as she chirped about her new teacher, and how she hoped today she'd get a glitter sticker. Michael, her father, managed a weary smile. His face was lined and his shoulders heavy, but the way he looked at Ella held nothing but love. They had come in for a routine school checkup, nothing unusual. Ella was healthy, or so Michael believed. The nurse greeted them kindly, teasing Ella about her pigtails and slipping a sticker into her hand before leading them to the exam room. Ella climbed up onto the paper-covered table, legs swinging, humming a tune while Michael sat beside her, rubbing his eyes with one hand. He had taken the day off from his warehouse job, and it showed in the oil-stained fingernails and the exhaustion in his voice. The door creaked open, and in came Dr. Reynolds, warm and professional, clipboard in hand. "Good morning, Ella." "Ready to be brave today?" she asked cheerfully. Ella beamed and nodded, but as the doctor scanned the chart, her smile faded. Her brow furrowed and her eyes lingered longer than necessary on one page. She flipped it again. Inside the folder, tucked neatly between routine vaccination records and developmental notes, was an ultrasound image, one dated just a few weeks ago. Dr. Reynolds stared at it, her heart pounding. It wasn't supposed to be there. The clinic hadn't ordered or performed this scan. And yet, there it was, a clear image of Ella's internal organs labeled with her name and age. It looked legitimate, too legitimate to be a mistake. "Michael," she asked carefully, "did someone else bring Ella in recently? Maybe to another clinic?" He shook his head, confused. "No, just me, always been just me." The doctor's instincts buzzed with concern. Something was wrong, something buried just beneath the surface. The scan didn't match the ordinary nature of their visit. Whoever had inserted that image had done it for a reason deliberately and possibly to save the child's life. As Ella giggled and kicked her legs, oblivious, Dr. Reynolds excused herself quietly, the ultrasound pressed to her chest like a secret too heavy to carry alone. Something wasn't right, and she had to act fast. Dr. Reynolds sat silently for a moment, the air in the room thick with questions she wasn't yet ready to ask. The ultrasound image still sat in her hands, but now it was also glowing on the screen behind her. She had pulled it up on the monitor, wanting to be sure, needing to see it with her own eyes. The scan was recent, taken just weeks ago, and it clearly showed Ella's abdomen, but something was off. Beneath the innocent outlines of a child's organs, there were shadows, abnormalities that looked like small internal lesions or a forming cyst, the kind that, left unnoticed, could turn serious. Even dangerous. Michael sat across from her, bouncing his knee, distracted by Ella, who was busy arranging tongue depressors like dominoes on the counter. He looked up, sensing the doctor's shift in energy. "Is something wrong?" he asked. Dr. Reynolds hesitated, then kept her voice steady. "Michael, this scan, it's from a few weeks ago. Are you sure no one else brought Ella in for any tests? Her mom, maybe?" The question hit like a slap. Michael's face froze. His mouth opened, then closed. His voice cracked when he finally spoke. "Her mom died 5 years ago in childbirth. Ella never met her." Dr. Reynolds swallowed hard. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." She turned back to the image, heart pounding. The scan wasn't old, and it wasn't from a mistake. Someone had intentionally uploaded into Ella's file. But how, and more importantly, why? She turned to Michael again. "Do you mind if I step out for a moment? Just a quick call?" He nodded, though he looked rattled. "Yeah, sure. Is Is she okay? Dr. Reynolds forced a thin smile. She will be. We're just going to get ahead of something. That's all. She stepped out, closed the door behind her, and walked briskly to the nurse's station. Her fingers trembled slightly as she picked up the phone and dialed. This is Dr. Reynolds at Southview Pediatric Clinic. I have a 5-year-old female. Patient showing internal signs of damage on a recent abdominal ultrasound. Scan came in anonymously. I believe it was intentional. Possibly urgent. I'm requesting immediate EMS dispatch for transfer to County General. She gave Ella's name, her heart racing faster now. Someone had found a way to send a silent cry for help, and somehow that message had gotten through. The sound of distant sirens grew louder, then stopped abruptly as the ambulance pulled into the clinic parking lot, lights flashing in urgent rhythm. The late morning calm was gone, replaced by movement, voices, and the low hum of tension. Michael sat on a bench just outside the front doors, his arms wrapped tightly around Ella, who clutched a half-eaten lollipop in one hand and her favorite stuffed bunny in the other. She looked up at her dad with wide, curious eyes, sensing something wasn't right. 2 paramedics rushed over with a gurney and gear bags. One knelt beside Ella, his voice soft but brisk. Hi, sweetheart, my name's Jordan. We're just going to check you out, okay? Michael looked up, confused and overwhelmed. Is this really necessary? She's fine? She was just a little tired lately. The medic glanced at his partner, then back at Michael. Her vitals are unstable. She's showing signs of internal distress. We need to move quickly. Dr. Reynolds appeared at Michael's side, her coat fluttering slightly in the breeze. She looked him in the eye with a kind of steady urgency. Michael, I know this is all happening fast, but please trust me. That ultrasound, it wasn't meant to be in her file. But it led us here. It showed us something we never would have known. Someone out there must have seen something in Ella. They were worried, and they were right. Michael's breath caught in his throat. His hand tightened around Ella's small shoulder. I didn't know, he said, the words barely more than a whisper. I thought she was just run down from school. I didn't know. Tears welled up in his eyes as the weight of it all began to settle in. The stress, the long shifts at work, the guilt he had missed the signs. But someone else hadn't. Ella looked up at him, her voice small but brave. Daddy, am I okay? Michael turned his face toward her, barely able to speak past the lump in his throat. He kissed her forehead, brushing a loose strand of hair away. You will be, baby, he said, his voice breaking. You will be. As the paramedics gently lifted Ella onto the stretcher, her bunny still in hand, Michael followed close behind, eyes locked on his daughter. The ambulance doors swung shut, the sirens fired up again, and with it so did hope, because someone, somehow, had seen what he couldn't, and now Ella had a chance. The soft beeping of monitors and the gentle rustle of hospital sheets filled the quiet room. Ella lay curled up on her side, a small bandage on her stomach and her beloved bunny tucked under one arm. Her face was peaceful now, color returning to her cheeks. A week had passed since the surgery, since doctors removed a growing cyst that had been pressing silently against her organs, a danger no one had seen until it nearly became a tragedy. Michael sat beside her bed, holding her tiny hand in his calloused one. He hadn't slept much. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes, the ambulance, the scan, the surgeon's serious expression, the moment he realized just how close he'd come to losing her. And the question haunted him, who sent that ultrasound? He'd asked everyone at the clinic, the front desk, the nurses, even Dr. Reynolds. No one knew. It hadn't come through official channels. Finally, one of the nurses said they were reviewing security footage just in case. That morning, as sunlight slipped through the recovery room blinds, a knock came at the door. A young nurse peeked in, holding a tablet. "Mr. Taylor, I think you'll want to see this." Michael stood slowly, careful not to wake Ella, and followed her to the nurse's station. She pressed play on a grainy black and white clip from a week ago. The camera faced the clinic entrance. The footage showed the early morning before their appointment. A woman approached the mailbox by the door, her steps slow but purposeful. She wore a long coat, and her face was partly hidden by a scarf. She paused, looked around, then gently placed an envelope inside. Michael leaned in, his heart thudding, the scarf. It was familiar, patterned with soft blue roses. He hadn't seen it in years. His breath caught. "Wait." The nurse looked up at him. "You recognize her?" Michael nodded, almost in disbelief. His voice dropped to a whisper. It was her mother, Ella's grandmother. His mind raced. After his wife died in childbirth, her mother had vanished, grief-stricken, angry, refusing to speak with him. He had assumed she blamed him. Maybe she had. But she hadn't disappeared entirely. She'd been watching, caring, and when she saw Ella growing pale, slowing down, something must have stirred in her. Enough to step out of the shadows and save her granddaughter. Michael wiped his eyes, a mix of sorrow and awe. She was never gone. She just didn't know how to come back. But she had come back. And in the most important way, when it mattered most. The afternoon sun spilled golden light across the park, casting long shadows and warming the grass beneath Ella's feet as she ran, arms outstretched, chasing butterflies with the kind of joy only a child who's been given a second chance can. No, her laughter echoed across the field, light, free and full of life. On a weathered bench nearby, Michael sat quietly, watching her with the same wonder he had the first time he held her. But today, something was different. Today, he wasn't alone. Beside him sat Margaret, his wife's mother, her hands folded in her lap, her face weathered not just by age, but by years of grief, silence, and distance. She had always carried herself with strength, but now there was a softness in her expression and a tremble in her voice. "I never blamed you," she said suddenly, her eyes still on Ella. "I blame myself. I lost my daughter, and I shut everyone out, including you." Michael didn't speak at first. He just listened, letting the words settle into the silence between them. He glanced at her, saw the pain in her eyes, and something else too, remorse. "And love, I thought you hated me," he finally said. "I didn't," Margaret whispered. "I just didn't know how to stay when everything hurt. But when I saw Ella at the grocery store last month limping, pale, it was like I lost her. Mother all over again? I couldn't ignore it." Michael reached over and gently took her hand. For a moment she didn't respond. Then she curled her fingers around his. "You saved her life," he said, voice thick. "Please, stay." They sat in silence, the kind that heals rather than divides, as Ella ran in circles, pausing only to shout, "Look, Daddy." "I almost caught one," Michael smiled and waved. Margaret did too. For the first time in years, there was no bitterness, no resentment. Just two people stitched back together by the shared love of one little girl. Sometimes the past breaks us, but sometimes it watches quietly from a distance, waiting for the right moment, not to erase what was lost, but to help rebuild something even stronger. And on that bright afternoon, what started as a simple checkup became something else entirely. A silent warning turned into a miracle, and a fractured family found its way home.